Hello and welcome to another episode of Hey Mama. I am joined today with Carlene, mum of two beautiful girls, same, gentle sleep consultant and nurse from Sweet Dreamers Sleep Consulting. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Megan. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on as well because, a mum of two girls or two babies, I had my fair share of issues, of sleep issues. And, I remember with my first baby, I read, I'm going to name Save Our Sleep. And and I thought, I'm such a structure person. I'm such a routine person. So, and I'm very controlling. I've got this controlling aspect. So I was like, I'm going to read this. And I was like, this suits me fine. The baby's going to sleep then. And the baby's going to eat then. And everything is going to be wonderful. And I'm going to have this down packed. And then when you actually have your child, it's a whole new ball game. And you put so much pressure and expectations on yourself when you have this baby, and if it's not doing what you thought it was going to do, or life isn't what you thought it was going to be like, and it's like a whole a mountain just crumbling down on you, and you put so much pressure on yourself. And I suppose that rolls into postnatal depression and anxiety and all that kind of thing that you put on yourself. So I'm really interested in, I've seen some of your strategies. I don't know whether I'm using the right words or techniques. I'm really interested to find out more, and I'm really interested in sharing this with other mamas as well. So it can be a lot more of a positive experience. So can you tell me or tell us a little bit about what led you to be a sleep consultant, and how did you develop your approach to sleep training?
Yeah, absolutely. And you actually nailed it on the head just then. Like, I was in the same situation as you. I felt myself up, unfortunately, for failure. Like, I thought I did right by doing all of the research. I'm going to structure it and I'm going to have a plan. And then the baby came and it failed.
And they're not a robot, right?
it failed because I took into account that my baby was her own person and had her own needs. And I tried to create a plan based around what my thoughts were or should be for her, rather than what her wants and needs were going to. And I think that that's where a lot of the information is failing parents, that the prenatal is that how it should be, blah 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 blah, and so I ended up postnatal anxiety and everything was going wrong, and I thought I was failing as a mum, and hiring a sleep consultant. And I did it at, it was like 2:00 in the morning, and back it was like the first wake up of the night. I just felt really overwhelmed in that moment, and I'm like, I need something. It was the soonest I could get a time with me, and booked it without doing much what actually was involved in it. It was more someone here, I need some support. And a couple of days later, this beautiful lady, actually, she was lovely, came over, went through a lot of holistic stuff, which I found incredibly helpful. But then the time came to actually start implementing some techniques, and unfortunately it was a lot of controlled crying based techniques, and really amplified my anxiety to the point where I had to ask her to leave. And my baby was in one room crying, I was in the other room crying. My husband was like, it's okay, and I'm like, there's still 10 minutes until I can respond to my baby, and it's just not working. So long story short, we were prepared for the second one, for our second daughter, and I was like, I need to find someone that I can call if the time comes that support again. And instead of finding somebody, I found a real course. And I've been a nurse for a time. It was like 11 years at that point. I've been a primary healthcare nurse working in GP clinics with young families. So I thought, it shouldn't too complicated, maybe I'll do the course. And so I did the course, and lockdown and COVID, and it was like, well, I'm home with a baby. My husband was made redundant and helping with both of the kids. And so I Sweet Dreamers as an outlet. And here we are 3 years later. So,
Wow.
one thing I didn't touch on, I should mention, is that I found a course that focused on gentle sleep training, holistic sleep training, and that was my niche that I really wanted to focus on, and also change the view on sleep training, that it can be done in a gentle way, in a way that we don't need our babies to cry for long periods of time or at all. Babies need support, they need reassurance, they are babies and children and toddlers, and to leave them to cry for any period of time actually reinforces the fears that they have sleep time. So to be responsive is really important at this particular time. So yeah, here we are.
Can you tell me a little bit about your gentle techniques rather than crying it out then? What sort of things can we do instead of that? Because I tried the crying out method from that book, and all that, try to control it kind of thing, and it didn't feel right to me. It didn't sit right to me. So yeah, what other things can mums do or parents do?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different methods specifically that we can use. So something like being in the room and holding a child's hand whilst they fall asleep, or a baby, and support them as they fall asleep, can be really, really beneficial, especially if you're not wanting to be physically holding them. There can sometimes, look, I'm going to say that there's no such thing as a no cry technique, because babies cry, it's their only form of communication. So being there to support them whilst they are learning any new skill, and babies can cry when they're learning to roll. So I don't want to,
not get the message that a baby shouldn't cry at all.
Correct.
Yeah.
Being there is what your baby needs. Then maybe something as simple as being there with your hand on them can be really beneficial. Or there's a technique called the pick up put down method, where you can put your baby down, see how they respond. If they start crying, you can pick them up, reassure them, then start again, and that can help them self-regulate their emotions, because sometimes when they're in the their own crying, it's really hard for them to calm down. So some frequent pickups and a cuddle to, okay, I'm okay, start again, can help them try and want to self-settle a little bit better, knowing that you're right there in case they need you. But something that's really important for parents to know is actually the technique is such a small component of sleep training. It's maybe only 10 or 15% of the bigger picture. It's the holistic stuff that can make the difference between what technique you use. So things like routine, food intake, sleep environment, all those sorts of factors, if those are off balance or not ideal, doesn't matter what technique you're using, the child might not sleep. So it's really important every aspect.
Can we talk a little bit about the environmental factors? I have seen that on your stories before, and a mum that recovered from chronic fatigue and had to learn about all of this melatonin and how to create a sleepy space. Let's talk about that with the babies.
Yes, absolutely. So the first thing to know is thinking about newborn is we want to sleep in a lighter environment all day and a dark environment all night to help them adjust to the day-night routine, because they're born back to front. That's ideal for the first month until we're confident that the right routine. Once that transition has happened, up until 6 weeks old, we want them sleeping in a lighter room, just to make sure that their circadian rhythm starts to get, which is their internal body clock, is the right way around. So once that, then want the ideal sleep environment to be super dark, because the darker the environment, the better quality melatonin release occurs. So circadian rhythm works is lighter, brighter environments tell daytime, produce melatonin. Then goes to darker environments, tells us it's nighttime or sleep, start releasing all of the melatonin that we were producing during our awake periods. So we want it nice and dark. Also, then it plays into, for slightly older babies, 4-5 months on, less distraction. They are distracted by everything. And I'm sure a lot of mums, even breastfeeding, any noises, they're like, well, what's that? They look and learn everything. So the dark environment distraction there's going to be. We want no lights pointing directly at the baby's face, which can be difficult depending on the kind of camera that they've got. So if it's one switch type of light, you can try blue tack or some electric tape. Ideally, you also want any sort of electricity at least a meter and a half away from a cot, because electrical currents actually can interfere with sleep and interfere with sleep.
I found that so fascinating, because that happened with Logie, my second one. She was a really, really bad sleeper. And then we actually had the internet connections or wires or whatever in our bedroom. And then she was in a cot just next to our bed, and then there was the wardrobe directly across from her. And somebody had told me back then, and I was like, wow, I never even thought about that kind of interference. And then we decided to then make the move of her being in her own room after that. She graduated into her own room, but because she was such a terrible sleeper, we sort of hung on to her being in our room for so long. And then we thought, it's about, somebody mentioned that, and it's kind of like it pulls you out of the fog. And this is why, having a sleep consultant or having support, and having a coach in general, they can see the forest from the trees. When you're bogged down in the trees, you can't see those little things that somebody else can point out to you when you're so sleep deprived and stressed out and, feeling all the feels.
Yeah, when you're in amongst it, it's really difficult to see anything except what you're so caught up in. So understandable. Did it make a difference when you moved rooms?
Yeah, so I think it did make a bit of a difference. But then I actually had someone come in like feng shui and come into my home and say, your house is disconnected. And so our bedroom was up here, the office was in the middle room, and then the girls were separated in their bedrooms. And we were actually going through a period where both of them were waking up, and it was like musical beds. I know a lot of mums can relate that it's musical bed at night time. Everybody is like, oh, we're in here now, we're in that one, you go into that one and you go into that one, and we'll just all end up in the one bed. And when I had someone come into my home and say, your house is cut in half to those girls, so they don't feel as though they are connected to you. And so after they said that to me, I took action, and I moved the office right to the back of the house, and I put both girls together. So they had their own separate beds, but they were in the same room, and that seemed to help.
Yeah, amazing. They just needed that security, and sharing a room, sometimes it's sharing a wall potentially. So that's so good that was really beneficial.
Yeah. So if you want to continue with so after the, the electric cords and things like that, what else about the environment? You mentioned about the circadian rhythm, the dark room. So I wanted to ask about the dark room after 4 weeks. Did you say? Yeah. So after 4 to 6 weeks, around that full initial period, you want the lightness during the day. So us, taking the baby out in the cot, out in the lounge room kind of thing to sleep during the day, that's a good thing. And then trying to have complete darkness at nighttime to get them, in the right rhythm or in the right zone. And then after the 4 to 6 weeks, you're saying complete darkness every time they sleep?
Correct, because then in between the naps, they're having awake time, so then they're getting exposure to natural sunlight. But in or out of the house, they're still getting that regular day. So that just keeps in with the rhythm of the day.
Yeah, beautiful. Because I can see some, holes in what we were doing as well. I remember our room was quite light during the day, and well after she was about 5 or 6 months old, and I had lots of trouble getting her to sleep. And I was like, "What is going on? Why won't this kid just go to sleep? It's nap time. You're clearly tired." But so that makes a lot of sense to me as well, because the room is all lit up.
Yeah. If they can see you there, you're a distraction potentially. That you're not there, then they can go into panic mode. Dark, and they can smell you because you were there or it's in your room. It's still reassuring as though you are there, and so if they you and that you're close by, and then if they do call out and you respond to them, there's that reassurance. The way a baby falls asleep is how they want to stay asleep. So if the room is dark and they feel like you're there, there's that reassurance when they're at the end of a sleep cycle and try and over. They still think that you're there. Whereas if you're there and then they fall asleep and you disappear and they wake up and the room's empty and they can see that they're alone, they're more likely to wake up and not want to go back to sleep independently. They're going to want to call out for you. So there's so many benefits to the darkness. In particular, the melatonin side of things, like it support them wanting to roll over those sleep cycles. And then just adding to how I fall asleep, how they want to stay asleep. When we come to the cycle, babies tend to flutter their eyes a little bit, and so if there's no difference between those when they're fluttering, they're much more likely to just close them again and roll into that next cycle. So it's beneficial for so many different reasons.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense because I love darkness when I go to sleep.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Like in the summertime, I sleep terribly because, you have some windows open to get some air. So then it's not complete darkness. We live in an apartment complex. So there's street light, there's lights out there. And like Pete thinks I'm a complete weirdo. But, listening to your stuff, it totally makes sense. And so and he was laughing the other day because I set the girls' rooms up the way that I like to fall asleep. And so I was saying, well, it's actually really good for them to release that melatonin and the circadian rhythm and all these things that I've been learning from, getting unwell myself. So then I will just mimic that for the girls because I've seen the benefits of what's happened with me. So then I want the girls to benefit from having that good solid sleep as well.
Absolutely. And it doesn't stop, really. I mean, my oldest, Abby, she's 5.5 now, and she hasn't had blockouts on since she was probably about 2.5. However, every daylight savings, we tend to get into, like, she'll get excited falling asleep and her room's still a little bit light.
Yes.
And, like, that's an exciting thing. But then all of a sudden, the excitement goes away and then she's distracted for like an hour and
Yes.
So every day I find myself putting up, and my favorite type of blackout blind is black bags.
What is it?
Black garbage bag.
Oh, a black garbage bag.
Black garbage bags. They're cheap. They are so effective because you can get every nook and cranny. Tape them up with just normal tape to the windows. Yep. I put them up because they're cheap. They're only up for a couple of months in my kids' rooms. Yep. And then they're gone again. I take them on holiday. We were in Queensland last October, end of October, early November. It was so light and it was so light at 4 a.m.
And
my kids' room was so dark that at 4 a.m. when I woke up, I went and slept on the floor in my kids' room because it was
nice and dark.
So it's a really, really beneficial tool. But
that's an excellent tip. I have noted, and I'm sure everybody else that is listening to this has noted black garbage
bags.
Amazing.
I haven't found anything that works as well. And you can buy them thing, but you'll never find something that's going to fit your windows
Yeah. Because everyone's is different. Yeah.
Hotel room windows are going to be, or you're going in what the apartment's going to be, or the Airbnb. It's hard, but $5-10 on bags and you're sorted. So
yeah, that's such a life-saving tip as well. And you also talked about the cameras. And I just started thinking about, when you go on holidays, when you go on holidays with your kids, you can sometimes have the worst sleep in hotel rooms because they have those stupid clocks or the TV light. And I'm a person that will go and try and cover that up, or I just, turn the clock around and everything. So they're really good tips too. So garbage bags. And then when you're in a hotel room, make sure that it's complete darkness, because you all won't have really good sleep. And then you can't, have a good time, can you?
Yeah. If you're exhausted, you're up all through the night,
You're tired, you're cranky. It's not a holiday. It's a nightmare. And then you need a holiday after your holiday.
You so do. And especially with kids.
Yeah. So how do you want to change the stigma around sleep training, and what impact do you hope to have on parents who are struggling with their child's sleep?
Yeah, so I'm wanting to change the stigma, because at the moment when you think sleep training, you think controlled crying, cried out, that you have to leave your child for, periods of time to allow them the opportunity to try and self-settle and things like that. And that just doesn't need to be the case. In fact, it has the opposite effect, in my opinion, that the more you leave them, the more it reinforces the child's fears around sleep. We're not going to be coming back. Scientifically, if you leave a child to cry for more than 2 minutes at a time, they start to release the cortisol stress hormone. Yeah. So that is going to be working against sleep. If you're stressed, it's really difficult to fall asleep. So if a child does eventually fall asleep, 1, it's out of exhaustion. 2, they've fallen asleep highly stressed. So they're more likely to wake up sooner, so catnapping or more frequent night wakings, especially through the sleep training process, which means you've got to do it more frequently. You're having to leave them to cry at much larger intervals, much more frequently through the sleep training process. Whereas if you're doing a sleep training technique where you can be more responsive, your child's going to be falling asleep much calmer and more relaxed, feeling safe and confident that if they need you are going to come to them. And that then makes me feel, well, if I don't need anything, I'm tired, I'm full, I'm warm, and if I do need something, someone is going to respond to me, maybe I will just try and shut my eyes and see what happens. And then all of a sudden they start falling asleep, and then they wake from a sleep cycle, and maybe they'll cry out because they don't know how to live a sleep cycle, and then get back into I don't need anything, I'm not hungry, I'm not cold, someone will respond to something, maybe I will try and close my eyes again. And then they start falling back asleep, and then they learn to link those cycles, and all of a sudden it was a really unstressful experience for both Bub and parents, and there was minimal crying because Bub was responded to the entire time. So, and it's a much nicer experience for everybody, but then also it was looked at really holistic. So we've addressed routine, we've looked at food, nutritional intake as well. So foods that really support sleep, which is, I'm sure, something that you know all about. There are foods that really impact sleep. So foods that can cause wakefulness, high sugar, fructose, and then there are foods that support high in fiber and protein and zinc and that sort of thing. So things that we can adjust in and timing wise when we're that will also support sleep. So if we look at sleep environment, look at all of those factors, then we can really get on top of sleep in a really calm, enjoyable way for everybody. I had a consult yesterday, and we changed all of those factors, a little bit of play, I manipulated this sleep environment slightly, and this little boy self-settled, and we didn't have to do any settling technique. That was just the holistic adjustments.
Just through the safety and security of my environment is predictable, my environment is set. I've got mum there if I need her, I've got all my needs met.
Exactly. And I got a good melatonin piece and those sorts of things. And when Bub did call out, we responded. And so, you know, it doesn't have to involve crying and stress and all that.
Getting to the point of getting so stressed out.
Yeah. And if Bub's stressed, 9 times out of 10, the parent who is settling the baby is stressed too. And if the parent is stressed, the baby feels the parent's stress. And then they're like, I feel stressed. There must be something stressed about, and then it amplifies as well. So, you know, it's just this cycle.
Exactly. So with the COVID-19 pandemic, I want to talk about that, and because that's when you got, you know, your husband was redundant, and that's when you decided to do the sleep course, and those subsequent lockdowns. So many families, they would have experienced disruptions to routines. Not going to school and daycare and all those kinds of things, and sleep schedules. How has this affected your work as a sleep consultant, and what advice can you offer to parents who are struggling with sleep during that time?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky in that it was the start of my career as a sleep consultant at the beginning of COVID. So for me, I was able to establish myself in the online space, doing Zoom consultations and that side of things, which was really, really helpful. But it also meant that I was experiencing what all those families were experiencing. So not being able to do day-to-day routine is really difficult when, you know, you're at a daycare, you're not allowed to go out and do the exercise that you're able
even going to the park. Sometimes you weren't allowed to go out and get some sunlight, and the first 3 months we weren't even allowed outside.
Exactly. And that's really difficult, especially when you're thinking about circadian, you know, we need that.
I need the sunlight, the fresh air. Yeah,
exactly. So how do we then combat that? Things like getting out into your backyard is really that's not always possible going into winter time and the weather's not always great. Playtime, mealtime in front of a window, really helpful. So then you're still looking outside, you're still getting the benefits of natural sunlight, telling your body it is still daytime and those sorts of things. So that's all super helpful. My children, my older, who was 2.5 at the time, we made obstacle courses in the house. So jumping.
Cool, yeah.
Climbing up and down the stairs. So we got our bodies moving, we still tried to burn off energy and get our brains moving or working, and just trying to do those sorts of things. Over the last couple of years, even since coming out of the pandemic and lockdowns, those sorts of things have still been really helpful, because we've still had the backlash of that, where we've been really sick. So we were in lockdown for 8 years. So then the side effect of that was that viruses were mutated, and we're catching those mutated viruses, which are a lot more extreme than what we've experienced in the past. So the flu is really bad, and coughs and all those sorts of things. So we're stuck home, and what do we do? Because most people are trying not to get out and about if we're unwell anyway. So doing things like that at home, obstacle courses, and going outside into the backyard, chalk drawing, and I mean, going back to the basics of hopscotch and things like that on the nature, you know, just to be able to do the bare minimum, but still getting the right exposure and the right amount of burning off energy.
Yeah, perfect. And can you tell us a little, you told us a story about little boy yesterday. Do you have a successful other case where you've had the gentle approach, sleep training, or it made that difference for a family that you worked with?
Every family that I've worked with.
Yeah.
I've crying or cried out ever. It's about 1,000 families worked with now. So I'm trying to think of a specific.
Yeah, one that really stood out to you, you know, warmed your heart. And
I mean, they all do, because they all make a difference. There was a recently actually that I worked with where mum was suffering quite badly with postnatal depression, seeing a psychologist on a every other basis, quite unwell, but sleeping at all. And dad was amazing. He really stepped up. He actually took a long service leave because mum was really struggling. This wasn't the original plan. Saw how mum was struggling and decided he needed to step up. So they brought me in and did consult after a 2-hour phone call to prepare ourselves for the consult, so I could come in and go through everything with dad so that mum could rest. And after 2 days, baby was 6 months old at this point, and after 2 days she was napping. At least 2 of her naps were between 1.5 and 2 hours, so that made a and the nighttime is 100% affected by the daytime sleep. So we fixed most of the day within 2 days, and nights I think she just woke once a night after that and had just one quick feed since then. And because the pressure has been so much and there's such a more predictable routine, mum seems to have really settled down a lot. She's still getting a lot of the treatment, because a lot of it, of course, biological. But the pressure is off. She's really to enjoy motherhood and really strengthened, because when Bub was so tired, she was crying and whinging a lot and very clingy, and that just set mum off.
Triggered her. Yeah.
So happy and playful. So mum's really enjoying that bond a lot more. That's really fun. So that was about 2 months now. So I need to check back in with them, but that made a
That's amazing. I mean, I know that exact feeling of, I just want to, because I really enjoy being a mama, but it's those sorts of challenges that can wear you down and drag you down. But also I want to point out that the expectation that society seems to have on mums, rather than just like telling them how normal it is for, let's talk about attachment theory after this. So how normal it is for your baby to be clingy to you, to want you, to need you, to that first however many months, I don't know, that they need you, and that you kind of do need to drop everything else and just embrace motherhood and not try and be this person and that person and instead just really, you know, surround yourself in that mother bubble. I feel like that's where I went totally wrong. I felt like I needed to be back into the business. I needed to support my husband, and you know, I needed to you know, show the world that you can do it all. And I think that the biggest lesson there was just to be like, no, you don't have to do it all. You can just be mama. And that is so, it's the most important work that we will ever do. And I say that now. I've read it before, I've seen it before, and that's the message that I put out there now, is that is the most important work you will ever do, is to be a mama. So let's talk about the attachment theory. I had a question down here talking about that. So how do you integrate attachment parenting in your philosophy of gentle sleep training?
Yeah, so all of my techniques involve a lot of physical touch and cuddles, and if there's not a physical pickup, there is both hands physically touching the baby through settling. So I think that the more physical touch there is, the better. And I think this also plays on how I mentioned earlier, if a baby is crying for more minutes on their own, they start to release the stress hormone. So the more physical touch that we provide, the more oxytocin that there is, the So the less stressed the baby's going to be, more supported that they feel through any part of the process. And I mean, a lot of parents know that the baby's going to cry. They're going to cry if they're being held, if they're not being held. But
yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What do you say to the parents that get stressed out, and do you have techniques for them when their baby is crying and they're holding them, and you think, well, and you can feel yourself, the cortisone and the stress levels are rising in you. How do we? What can we do?
Yeah, it's really important. You are a highly anxious person, or you do have postnatal anxiety or depression, that you've got a support work with you through the sleep training process. If you don't, that is, and this is my initial questionnaire. If you don't, I do suggest going to somewhere like a sleep where there is round the clock support to help you, because you really do need to have support. It is so important that you can pass the baby on to someone who can do the process with you. There is also techniques where you can take a 30-second breather and give Bub a 30-second opportunity for calm, and you get the 30-second opportunity for calm, and then you can both come back together and try again. And it just allows you both to reset and retry. So because it is important to be able to offer the comfort, but if you're becoming overwhelmed, it's not going to be helpful at all. So the resets are really important, and support is incredibly important.
The what, sorry?
The support.
Oh, the support, yes, yeah. Oh, I thought port. I thought, there's something, another technique or something. So what about like just, music? Do you have music helps calm you, calms the baby? Do you have anything like that is in your approach?
Well, there's white noise, really beneficial, particularly for baby more than mum. And I don't recommend using it if they haven't used it before 6 months of age. I have suggested mums, if they've got AirPods or headphones, to use that through the process if they're finding it overwhelming. Listening to or a podcast is a really great option as well through the settling process as well. I do put limits on my settling technique, so I don't like to just go until the baby finally falls asleep. I put caps on it, so sometimes you find themselves needing to put baby to sleep any way that they can and have a nap together, or baby while they nap. So sitting in the chair and listening to something and having that cuddle to make sure the baby's calm, you're feeling calm, that can be really beneficial to keep everyone.
So like we still even, I mean, this may not suit everybody, but we still even lay there and we will do the books, the routine, the three grateful things that you have to, about your day. And we sing songs and my kids are 13 and 7 and, we will lay there for a good while, and that's still where and I feel as though once we accepted that is, the closeness and the connectedness actually helps a child sleep, that's when, our kids started to sleep really well, when they didn't feel that, oh, is mum leave, or how long is mum going to stay in here, and all that kind of inconsistency. Would you agree on that?
100%. Absolutely. Routine is everything, but also, closeness, sitting there together and doing that, them that reassurance. And the last thing that happens at the end of their day before they switch off is that I had that close with mum and dad. We did something really lovely, and it was a wind down from the stimulation of the day. It can be really helpful for those old, younger, 4, 5, 6-year-olds. Really helpful to what was your favorite part of your day,
exactly.
That even my 3-year-old likes to tell me what was her favorite part of her day. Is her big sister telling me. So
yes, exactly, same.
It's a beautiful way to end the day. I sit in bed and I say, did you have a good day? And he, yeah, I did you have a good day? So even as adults, it's nice to kind of end the day finishing it up,
Totally. Yeah, yeah. And reflecting and thinking of something positive or something, thinking about something grateful. And do you think that there is a misconception out there that kids are expected to just go to sleep on their own?
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the, there's that, and there's also misconception that they should go to sleep like that. But
Yeah.
that I don't get into bed and close my eyes and I'm asleep. Like, that's just not possible. It's not how our bodies work. There is tossing and turning, comfortable. Sometimes I try up the water, I'll try and go to the toilet again. Kids don't have those options. Sometimes they toss and turn and make noise and they cry out. They need another because they're frustrated. All those sorts of things. So it's biological. It's not always. And some kids are more independent, but I can guarantee that they have needs, even if it's bedroom. It's before they go into their room. Mum, dad can have a kiss or a night, and then they go into their room and they read themselves a book, or they get into their own pajamas, or something still for a child to be able to get themselves ready and prepared for sleep. It may not be, depending on their age, in the bedroom. Most time it is. Obviously we're talking about younger for the most part, but there is always going to be a parental need of some sort.
Yes. And I think that changing that mindset is really important, and having that acceptance of that you are a mum, or you are a dad, or you are a parent, and it is your job to tend to your child's needs at whatever age, and to kind of try and listen to that and accept that, rather than listening to the noise out there that, oh, your kids should just go to sleep. They should, that's they're old enough now, or you need to teach them that's what they have to do, right? Like, how many people have said, oh, you just need to teach your kid that they'll teach your baby how to self-soothe.
And self-soothe, but it's because they have no more needs. You've met all of that. It's because you've met their needs. You've met the environment warm, not cold. You fed them so they're not hungry. You comforted them so they're not sad. You met their needs.
They're so safe. Yeah.
Did it though. So there is no question around what that actually looks like.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it. So I'm going to finish off on, for new parents who might be struggling with sleep, what advice would you give them to establish healthy sleep habits for their child? For new parents, first of all, there are no bad habits. That's the first thing that I want to say. And you can't overspoil your child, right? With love and
not spoil your child. If something is working for you, working for your baby, it is not a problem, as long as it's safe. So that's really, really important. Don't also compare. Your child is doing the baby.
Big time.
And your child is happy and you're happy. There's nothing wrong with it. It's great. That's wonderful. So that's because it just takes the pressure off. We're always comparing, and it's just not healthy. So that's the first thing that I would say. Otherwise, keep your sleep environment simple. Keep it dark, keep it clean. It looks beautiful when you've got like nice toys in the cot, a mobile hanging over the top of it. It looks really cute, but it's impractical and unsafe. So just keep it clean and keep it empty. Keep your environment dark, and try and aim, especially for new parents, try and aim to have one nap in the day or the bassinet a day, just to make sure that your child is comfortable and confident in their environment. You want to have lots of contact naps, and that's totally cool, newborns. But eventually you're going to be like, okay, I'm tired now and I want to be able to put the baby down. So set yourself up so that you can put your baby down just once a day in the cot. The first nap of the day tends to be the easiest. Always try and put your baby down. Everyone has heard the term drowsy, but you just try it and see what happens. Try it and it does work. That's amazing.
Yeah, but if it doesn't work, you just pick them back up and resettle them and try again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Carlene. I want to finish off with, where can people find you? Where can mums, where can dads, parents find you if they need some help and they want to reach out?
Thank you. So my website is www.sweetdreamers.com.au. Otherwise, you can find me on Instagram at Sweet Dreamers Sleep Consulting.
And she has some really great tips, mamas. I've been on there, and it's really refreshing. Even now, I've got children that are older, but it just solidifies and makes sense. And it's just, yeah, it's incredibly beautiful. So thank you so much for joining us and giving us all your wealth of knowledge and tips.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Mama. You can find all the relevant links, including socials, in the description section of this podcast. If you want to find out more information about how I can help you build your best body after babies, then visit my website, www.thefitmummethod.com, for more info. Lastly, before you leave here today, if you've enjoyed listening, then please subscribe and share so you can help me to reach out to those mamas that also need to listen too.